Hi, I'm Ali, Social Impact and Operational Engagement Manager for Unite. And thanks very much for joining us on today's Meaningful Conversation podcast. I'm really pleased to introduce Fiona Ellison. Fiona is joining us today and is the newly appointed director of the Unite Foundation. So hi, Fiona.
Hi, Ali. Thank you so much for having me.
Really great to have you here. So I'm really interested to chat to you today, Fiona, and I wanted you to join us really to be able to take the opportunity to start to get to know you a little bit more as the new joiner to the foundation, and just revisit what's been going on over particularly over the last 12 months, but all the great things the foundation have achieved, and really start to just delve into why what you guys do and the support you give to young people is so important in terms of their journey around HE, getting into university and beyond, and what success looks like, and how that is really intrinsic in reflecting our purpose of providing a home for success.
Great. I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a really good opportunity to share a bit more about the foundation and what's happened, and hopefully make sure that everyone listening is really inspired and excited by the work that Unite Students has helped us incubate in the foundation.
Absolutely, and there is so much there. So I just wanted to start, Fiona, tell us a little bit about yourself. How have you arrived at the Unite Foundation? What's come before that, and what really interested you to joining the organisation?
So my background has always been in the charity sector. So I have been working almost solely with young people for the last 15 or so years, really looking at how do we make sure that young people have the best start and opportunities in life. I was really fortunate, and I grew up in a really kind of supportive home, had lots of opportunities at school, was able to go to university and have the kind of full range of experiences, but have always been really conscious that I was really lucky, and part of my kind of career path has been about making sure that that's an opportunity that's available for as many people as possible. So previously I had been working on something called the I Will campaign, which worked to bring young people from all around the country to be able to take part in social actions, so sports volunteering, community fundraising, campaigning, whatever it might be, but giving back into communities, and was a really exciting opportunity to do a lot of policy work and campaigning, but really bringing lots of partners on board. What was really interesting about that was that it was a time-limited organisation. So I always knew that was finishing in December 2020. And after all the crazy year of last year, which I also took some time off because I had a baby, and thought, well, that's fine. I'll finish that. I'll have a little bit more time off. And then I'll think about finding a new job. And I just started to have a look and see what was out there. And the role at the foundation popped up. And it was one of those really serendipitous moments where I just thought that fitted everything I wanted to do. It was about making a difference to young people who maybe haven't had the best start in life. Really brought that youth policy background into the fore. Was a really exciting leadership opportunity for me to be able to direct and create change, but in something that I'm really passionate about. So was a bit of a too good of an opportunity to not apply for, and then was really successful or really lucky in getting the role. And so have been in post now for a couple of months. I started at the start of this year, which has been a whirlwind 2 months, but
I'm sure
has been lovely to get to know the team, even if I only really know them in the little square boxes that we all live in at the moment. But hopefully it won't be long until we can all meet in person.
Absolutely, fingers crossed. You didn't quite get the break you anticipated, but hopefully for the right reasons as opposed to anything else. Fiona, it's really interesting your background there and working with young people. I guess the two thoughts into my head that I'd be really interested to hear from you on is why young people, particularly, what's the inspiration you take in working with that group of people? And from your experience, why is the opportunities? There's obviously so much in conversation at the moment in the media around, equality and inclusion for everyone. Why is that opportunities for all piece so important to you to really kind of commit your career to, really, to support?
I think young people, it's such a transformational time in your life that that change from kind of teenage years into early adulthood, where you're really finding out who you are, what you stand for, what it is that makes you tick, who you want to be. And really, so much of that is shaped not just by your home life, but all of the other opportunities and things that you're exposed to in your life. And I've seen firsthand through a number of different ways and means that actually giving young people exposure to as many different opportunities as they can means that they eventually find the thing that goes, I fit here, this is me, this is my home, or whatever it might be. It really gives young people the chance to find that safe space where they really can be who they are. And I think that was what was really appealing to me in the foundation space, is that it's about giving those young people the opportunity not to say, actually, you've had a really tough start in life and we're going to really exploit you to tell your story and change the world. But actually, we're going to really value you as an individual. We're going to give you the safe space to have the best experience at university that you possibly can. And we're going to give you the opportunity, if you want it, to help shift and change the experience for other young people like you. And I really believe that giving young people that chance to have their voices heard and to make the changes that they want to see in the world is so important. So often I go to meetings, particularly in past roles, where we're talking about young people, but we're not talking with young people. And that difference behind sitting in a room with policymakers going, this is what we think young people need, rather than actually directly hearing from young people and them telling us, this is what I need, this is my experience. I have never been through the care system and I'm not estranged from my family. So how can I really know what it's like to do that? And that's the beauty of what we do at the foundation, is bringing those young people's voices to the fore and having them work alongside us to be able to really make sure that we're doing the very best that we can for them going forward.
Absolutely. And that you touched on at the start there of that piece around, the importance of people, these young people being able to find somewhere that they feel is home, where they really feel that they can fit. And I go back to that point about the ongoing conversation at the moment of the importance of that in the workplace. But if you feel that you don't even have that in your, your home environment, how difficult that must be to then actually feel comfortable to apply yourself in all your other areas of your life, and the importance of that. So absolutely, hear that, and also the point around, obviously making sure young people feel that they have their voices heard. And I know, as an organisation, Unite Students very much wants to be a champion for young people. Quite often the press is quite negative about students, and we have an opportunity to absolutely represent their voice, given that we do provide a home to 70,000 of them. It's extremely powerful. And, I'm always really impressed by, young people, what they have to say, what they're doing. You listen to their stories and, it's quite overwhelming sometimes when you think about what they potentially will go on to achieve. Am I right in thinking, Fiona, with this particular group, obviously you've talked there about why the purpose of the foundation really kind of attracted you to work there, and you guys obviously work to support young people from a background of care and family estrangement, and the national statistic around young people who have been I know that the figures around estrangement aren't so clear, but young people who come from a background of care, only 6% of those young people go on to higher education, whereas the national average is obviously far higher. And immediately, trying to understand the barriers there that actually prevent that happening, and then the impact that can potentially have on their future life and their ability, to pursue the avenues they want to for whatever success looks like to that individual.
Yeah, completely. And I think that's something that we often forget about, is that we work with a tiny proportion of those young people who feel like going to university is something that they can do. Hopefully people will have listened to our podcast, This Is Us. And if you haven't, I would really recommend that as some kind of follow-on work. But that is one of our scholars page interviewing, one of our graduates page interviewing our scholars, where they talk about their journey to university and why they're at uni and how they found that experience. And a lot of them say the people around them just didn't encourage them to go to university, either because they didn't think they could, or because they didn't have any role models around them. They didn't think they could afford to do it. So many different reasons and barriers that are put in place for those young people to be able to access that support. But what we know is that for those young people who are able to gain a place at university, successfully complete their undergraduate degree, they go on to have near normal graduation levels for young people who aren't care experienced, and therefore actually they're able to access the opportunities that come with a university degree. So it really is life-changing for those young people who are able to access it. And part of what we want to do, and I have been doing so already with some of the work of the foundation, is really helping to champion young people going to university and making it easier for them to be able to access it. So things like getting to university, you've got your place, you've managed to secure some accommodation. How do you physically get there if you haven't got your parents to take you? I remember trundling up the M1 with my mum and dad with a car packed full of stuff. Yeah. But actually, if you don't have that, how do you get there? So really practical things like paying for a taxi to get there. That makes such a difference to young people, and having a welcoming person at the other end when you get there, having something in your room that says, welcome home, this is your home, we're going to look after you, is so important to those young people to really make sure that they feel like they're validated by being there at university. It's where they belong, that they're able to be there and succeed, so that they get to that point where they feel like, actually, this is me, and I can be successful here, and I can go on to graduate, and then the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, absolutely. And that point there you've made, Fiona, about role models is a really interesting one, isn't it? And for me, it was something, when I've been aware of the foundation, that was hugely powerful, because these young people, if they're lucky enough to have a role model, an older person, whether it's through a school or, somebody else that they meet when they're younger that actually has been to university, that's one thing. But even then, actually being able to identify with another young person who's overcome similar barriers to themselves, that's very rare, isn't it? So actually the connectivity the foundation's providing there in terms of that peer support piece, which we know is so powerful to any young person, regardless of their circumstances. Actually, it's truly unique, isn't it, that the foundation is offering that network piece, because it's actually quite hard to come across.
It really is. And I think for some young people, when you go to your first day at university in your accommodation, one of the classic questions will be like, oh, what do your parents do? What does this? And actually, that's a really hard question. Some people will be really comfortable talking about their background. And for other young people, particularly going to university, is a fresh start, and you don't always want to have to talk about your background. And so what the foundation provides is that opportunity to connect those young people together, where they don't have to do that explanation of, oh yes, this is what happened to me, this is why I'm here, all of that stuff. It's just, it doesn't matter. And if they feel comfortable sharing it, great, but it's not something that we ask them to do. It's about providing an opportunity for them to talk to other people about just other normal stuff, but knowing that they don't have to explain why they're not going home at Christmas or in the summer holidays, because actually they don't have anywhere to go to. It doesn't matter. And that's the amazing thing about the foundation, is that we provide that accommodation for 365 days a year for 3 years for those students if they need it, so that they have that space to stay and be and to connect with other people in those periods of downtime, especially when it's just so valuable to have that network around you.
Absolutely. And it's, it's really clear to me the importance of the foundation and what they're providing to those young people. And it continues to be extremely powerful for the individuals that receive that award. Let's just take a step back there, Fiona. So am I right in thinking that the foundation has quite an important birthday coming up? Is that right?
So we're coming up to our 10 years, which is really exciting, and I think feels like an exciting milestone to celebrate, given the change that's happened. And I think lovely to look back and think that the investment that the business has put in creating the foundation as an independent charity has had a huge amount of impact, and I think really goes to show the idea that it's a long-term commitment that the business has made, and that is creating long-term change. We work a kind of year in advance in terms of opening up our scholarships, and then for a young person to complete a 3-year degree, that's a long time that we are working with young people and being there, and that support that the business has provided to the foundation really means that we're able to take that long-term vision, and that's actually really rare in the charity world as a whole, and particularly in this space is even rarer.
Absolutely. And from your perspective, obviously you work for the foundation, which, as you say, is an independent charity, but we have a very close affiliation between obviously you guys and Unite Students as a long-term kind of majority funder. Why do you think it is so important for Unite to have made that commitment, to have followed it through? And what do you think it says about the organisation?
I think it's a really powerful statement from the business to say our purpose about creating a home for success is something that we're living out, not just in our day-to-day world, but actually in really thinking about how we use our investment to create some really purposeful change. So when the foundation was first created, it was much more a kind of broader remit about any young person that was at disadvantage. I think what's really nice over the years is that's narrowed down the focus to be able to be really clear about the impact that we as a foundation can have with the support of the business, to be able to really make a difference to some young people's lives. I think what it demonstrates is that commitment to the business to be really forward thinking and to really make sure that it's not just about a one-off investment and here's a bit of money and off you go, but that long-term commitment, like I was saying, really does make a difference. I think it's really important to recognise that what the support from the business does is it gives us the opportunity to provide those scholarship opportunities and those rooms for young people, but also enables us to do a kind of broader piece of policy work to make sure that for those young people who we can't support, and I think it's important to recognise we can't support every single young person who would want a scholarship, but what we can do is to try and make life easier for those who might be in a university where we aren't operating, to be able to have the support that they deserve and that they should access. And I think particularly over the last 12 months, that's really come to the fore. And the team before I joined did an amazing amount of lobbying work around the support for students who were staying in our buildings, staying in the buildings over the kind of lockdown period, because that was their home and is their home, and they didn't have anywhere else to go to. And I think all of them would say the support that they got from the teams on the ground looking after them was incredible. And I know it's been a really difficult time for our students and for staff members, but I think our scholars would always would be hugely positive about that experience that they've had of people going above and beyond to really make sure that they were okay. And I think that just goes to show how that ethos of doing the right thing as a really core value of the business has been embedded throughout the teams and throughout the work in the foundation. It's not just at a senior level with the board committing the investment, but it's team members on the ground doing the right thing to go and support those scholars in their time of need.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. Some of the things you touched on there, Fiona. The fact around that it's not just about the cash. If you rewind and you think about, if you think of corporate social responsibility as it kind of used to be known, I want to say 15, 20 years ago, but even 5, 10 years ago, it was much more focused on organisations just giving some money to a charity to represent their good intention and the right thing to do. And actually, where we are today is around the fact that, yeah, absolutely, the investment of cash can make a real difference to some organisations or causes. But it's really about the kind of mutual strength that organisations working together can bring in terms of shared expertise and knowledge and experience and potentially service provision, in addition to cash, that can actually make a really fundamental difference in terms of impact that an organisation makes. And when we talk about that in terms of kind of social investment, we're really wanting to drill down to what are we changing because of what we're doing, whether that's about cash or time or service or anything like that. And you touch on something that, you know, I know when I've talked to some of our employees and, you know, out in the buildings, that to them, that's one of the reasons they love the foundation, because actually they really play a part in the success of it. And it's that, you know, that package of what we would summarise as home for success, and what that kind of service and support that's provided by our teams in the front line, combined with the scholarships that you guys provide, the extra support obviously that comes from the foundation team and the universities you work with, that really is what makes this something that's really truly unique and creates that value for the scholars receiving it.
Oh, completely. And I think particularly so for many of our scholars, they are with us for 3 years, and so they're with the teams and in the buildings for 3 years, for 365 days a year. They are, I think, some of the most kind of loyal tenants in a way, and they are some of the biggest promoters of the business. But that comes because they get a really positive service on the ground, but that's backed up by all of the extra support that we can provide from that allows us to function as an organisation. So from the kind of back office teams, and whether that's finance or HR that help us as a foundation run, to the teams in the cities that are making it work, that's the really valuable part of the relationship and the I guess the way that the foundation works with the business, that it's like you said, it's absolutely more than just it's cash. So that ability to create really meaningful relationships on the ground, and for us to be able to connect our scholars with the right people from the business, with the right people from their university, means that they are more likely to stay on and complete their degree. And that's got to be one of the biggest successes that we can celebrate.
Absolutely. That is when you talk about and it's not a moment, because obviously it is, as you say, over a longer period of time, but when you look at the impact, that's transformational, isn't it, in terms of what that can do for the young person, in terms of the, you know, what they go on to do, and hopefully the successful, you know, life they and whether that's career or just personally they go on to. You touched previously there, Fiona, just obviously the last 12 months, I think, you know, everybody listening will resonate with how challenging the last 12 months has been for lots and lots of reasons. And the foundation, you know, got behind their kind of cohort of scholars and other young people with similar experiences in perhaps a slightly different way to something they've done before. Talk to me a little bit more about that, what that looked like, and what are you thinking for the future? You know, does that change or add something to how the foundation wants to operate?
I think it was a really interesting time, and what has been really fascinating is coming in and hearing about it from the team, and obviously having not been here before to know what the normal was before, it certainly feels like the new normal for me now. But I think the focus from the team very quickly pivoted to what's the welfare, and how do we make sure that our scholars are supported in the best possible way that they can be, and how do we make sure that doesn't mean that they are suffering in any way, that they are able to still complete their academic studies, that they are still able, if they're isolating, to get food and whatever else it might be that they need to be safe and secure. And I think what that really brought out was the really valuable role that we provide in the foundation. So it's not just, here's your room for 3 years. Every now and then we might send you a survey to tell us what you're doing, and then we'll see if you graduate. And that's actually never been what we've done as a foundation, but I think has put even more to the fore this the added value that we bring, rather than just it being that room. And I think it's been really telling. We did a survey just at the start of the COVID pandemic last year, and then have done a follow-up survey at the start of this year, just to get a sense from students of how are they doing, what's happening, what are they feeling. And almost all of them came back and said actually there wasn't anything particularly big that was really worrying them. And I think that's testament to the team and the work that they have done. But what did start to come out was actually that those students are missing that meaningful interaction. They sit on, much like we all do, sit on Zoom calls, they're on Zoom lectures all day. They don't get the social side of university life, which is, for those of us that were lucky enough to go to university, is the bit that probably all of us remember, not the lectures that we sat through. And so one of the things that we are looking to do going forward is really trying to do more of that work to create the opportunities for our scholars to have that meaningful interaction between themselves, but also to start to think a little bit more about how do we go above and beyond in our support for those scholars, particularly around things like their employment prospects. So a lot of stuff that's come out recently around young people, just all of the summer internships from last year were all wiped out. There just aren't those work experience placements around. So what can we do to really make sure that we're helping our scholars when they graduate be in the best possible position that they can be to take on a future career? So for us, that has meant over the last year putting our scholars front and centre of all of our communications activity. But rather than doing that just because it's a nice thing to do and getting them as volunteers, we've actually paid those young people, and we continue to pay them to do our social media work. So we hand our social media channels over to a different young person every month. Young people were behind all of our brand refresh and working with a brand agency to pull all that together. And that's one of the things that we can do to make it easier for young people to say, this is what I have done, this is what I have achieved above and beyond just my university degree.
And it goes back to the point you made earlier about, really putting the young people at the front and centre of the Unite Foundation and giving them a platform, whether that be about, their voice or it's, indeed that experience is so valuable to them to be able to go on and find, work after they graduate.
Completely. And I found, particularly from previous roles, where if you're wanting to create change and make a difference, as a senior leader, I can go and talk to policymakers all day long, and that will always be nice. But if you put a young person front and centre and get them to talk about their experience and share their story, it's much harder to say no to that. And I think for us, that's something that we really want to build on going forward, is really properly walking the walk and talking the talk, with putting young people front and centre of our work and letting them share their narrative and share their story in a way that they want to, but in a way that's going to make life better and easier for other young people coming behind them.
Absolutely. And obviously the foundation doesn't work alone. We've talked about obviously the relationship with Unite Students and how that's a really intrinsic part to the offer in terms of the scholarship that students receive. But equally, you guys work with a lot of other organisations, don't you? You work with lots of university partners and also some other charities and kind of not-for-profits. Talk to me about kind of those relationships and what are the opportunities there in terms of the role the Unite Foundation plays in those interactions and helping to continue to evolve things and the support for these groups of young people.
So I think we probably have two key groups of partners. So one you talked about is our university partners. So the foundation works with 27 different universities, and we are for a key part of effectively their access and retention plans. So how do they make sure that they are best supporting students who are care experienced or estranged to be able to access university? And so we have a really good and deep and meaningful relationship with those universities. A number of them have been with us from the very beginning. And so over 10 years almost, we have worked really closely with them on providing the best possible support for those young people. And I think what's really positive about the role that the foundation plays is that even if a young person needs that extra bit of support, what we're able to do is find the right person in the university to make sure they're having that conversation, or the right person within the business to be able to get to a point where whatever issue has arisen, we can get to a really meaningful resolution that's the very best thing for that young person, and always having those young people's interests that are very core, and but that is built on a really solid foundation of relationships with universities, and that's really exciting. And we have a waiting list of universities who want to come and join us, and so certainly the ambition is to start to explore, well, how best do we support those universities in the future? And then the other part of our kind of partnership is exactly as you said, our kind of broader not-for-profit and kind of government agency group of organisations, all who have the interests of care, experience and estranged young people at the core, and starting to work together to look at what are some of those really key policy levers that we can work together to overcome that will really make a difference for all young people. And so things like some people will know there used to be a kite mark from Buttle, and there is now a new kite mark in development through a network called NECL, and that is about working with universities to provide the very best opportunities and experiences for young people who are care experienced and estranged to access university. And so as a group and a collective coming together to really realise that, and to make sure that that is something that then the offer is much more it's not patchy across different areas. So if you're a young person trying to access higher education, regardless of which local authority you come from, it's much easier for you to be able to access a really standardised set of support systems and structures for you to be able to go to university. And there are other things around data and how we measure and talk about care, experience and estranged young people, which actually collectively coming together is so much more powerful than us all individually trying to lobby to make a difference. And that's something that I'm really keen as we go forward to really bring to the fore. Is it's about complementing one another and working together to go forward, rather than trying to compete to say, well, this was our policy win or this is what we did. Actually, ultimately, it's about what's the best thing for young people who are care experienced and estranged, regardless of how that has come about.
That collaboration point is so important, isn't it, in terms of the shared knowledge and experience of the different types of organisations. And actually, it's incredibly powerful to hear that the foundation has established itself within that space, both with universities and how they work with these young people, but equally with these other organisations as well, and the platform that provides the charity to really go and try and deliver on what it wants to in terms of really being able to have a broader impact for young people, perhaps not just the ones that do have a scholarship with us, because actually if you can influence policy and those that higher education experience for I'd like to say all young people coming from these backgrounds, that is massive, isn't it, when you think of actually you guys are an incredibly small charitable organisation, yet to have that reach and that potential depth of impact is massive.
It is. It's really exciting, and I think absolute testament to the hard work of the team. So we are effectively 3.5 people, and that's tiny in the kind of charity world, but I think it goes to show the ambition of what we want to do as an organisation. And my reflections, we had a trustee meeting, and I think it was my 3rd week here. My reflections to the Board of Trustees was that actually we punch well above our weight in what we do, and the kind of scholarship side of our work, our kind of bread and butter, is something that we can do day in, day out. We know how to work that, and that works really well. And now it's about pushing on to go, how do we do that and support more young people, whether that's through creating more scholarships or through that policy piece to make it easier and better for young people. And a part of my work so far has just been doing the kind of rounds of sector partners to talk about the foundation and get their impressions. And everybody has talked about actually the foundation is really powerful and has been a really positive voice, really rooted in young people on the ground, but being really ambitious with saying, how do we make life better for every young person who's in our field of or kind of area that we want to be working with? And if we can't offer scholarships, what can we do to make life better for them? And I think that's something that I'm really keen that we continue to do and to drive forward, so that we are making it easier for those young people. And it's not something that lots of people are doing, and I think that's again real testament to the forward thinking of the business in creating the foundation and the team that have been within the foundation over the last few years, is not just accepting the status quo of, well, we get a donation, we provide some rooms, that's a very nice thing to do, but actually how do we do more and push on, and it feels like we've got a really great platform to build on now going into the future.
Yeah, it's so powerful, Fiona. I could talk to you about this for hours, but to me, what it sums up that actually what's brilliant about the foundation is that you guys, when you talk about impact, what are you changing? You're really now looking at a great combination of breadth in terms of the number of young people you can potentially have an impact on, but equally depth. So how much impact can you have? Is it a transformation? And actually with the scholarships it can be, and so that combination that you're able to provide as a charity, I think it's quite unique, isn't it? But so powerful. And you go back to the point that you are an organisation of 3.5 people, yet supported by obviously Unite Students, which does offer quite a lot of extra help, as whether that's our operational teams or support functions, which is brilliant. I guess just 2 things to finish from me, Fiona. As you said, I'm sure you've had an exceptionally busy 2 months, hit the ground running, albeit quite a odd 2 months given the way we're all working at the moment. What are you if there's one thing you had to call out that you're really excited about for the next 12 months? I don't know if that's too difficult to pick out one thing, but what would it be?
Oh, great question. I think there are loads of things coming up. I think the one really exciting bit is our sequel day. So on the 16th of April is effectively dipping our toe into the water of, can we bring some additional funding in to provide more scholarship opportunities? So we are not taking a scholarship intake this year because we didn't know where we would be and what the world would be looking like. So there are a number of young people who would have been wanting to go to university this year and because we are not providing an accommodation scholarship means that actually they might not be going this year. They might have to defer. And what we wanted to do was say, well, actually, what can we do to make that a difference? And there is some work we're doing directly with universities to suggest and persuade them that they might want to think about scholarships. But what we are doing is on the 16th of April is hosting a day that we're calling our sequel day. So we're encouraging individuals and groups of people to come together, if we can, to watch your favourite film sequel and then donate £2 to the foundation to hopefully get us to a point where we can provide an additional scholarship over this year. So it's already sparked lots of debate about what favourite film sequels there are. And I think particularly if you're a sci-fi fan, there's a lot more options. And I don't fit into that group. So that's a little bit harder. So I don't know whether that's part of what is exciting me, but whether I've got to get some sci-fi knowledge developed over the next couple of months. But I think that's a really nice opportunity to put something out there which young people have helped us create and design. So some of the kind of content, putting that out there, but to really say, actually, it doesn't cost a lot to put a young person through a scholarship. If we all come together, we can really make that difference. And I think that's going to be a really exciting test to say, what can we do? How can we make it work? And what's the appetite from people to be involved in this work going forward? So I think that's certainly top of mind in terms of exciting things coming up.
We'll have to have a think on that one, Fiona. I'm with you. I'm not particularly a sci-fi geek, albeit my partner has definitely tried to convert me. So I'd have to have a think. I mean, showing my age here, but I'd have to probably go for something like Rocky if I take part in that. But that's a brilliantly simple one, isn't it? Because actually it doesn't have to be about people physically being together. I've heard about people during lockdown virtually watching a film together. So it's a really good opportunity. So that's a great one. And I guess for you, Fiona, what do you want to say to people listening to us? As I say, I could talk to you about this for hours. I think the foundation is brilliant. It's something to be incredibly proud of for the organisation. I think it says so much about our values. And that we really want to try and level the playing field for young people and their future. But what would you like to say to them? And beyond getting involved on the 16th of April, is there anything you'd like to challenge them to do or think about?
I think my immediate thought is I think everybody should be really proud of the foundation. And what has been really interesting is I've already had some good conversations with people from across Unite Students, and some people know loads about the foundation and other people don't. And I think if you're in that category of not knowing quite so much, hopefully today has given you a good sense of what the foundation is. But I would say reach out and find out more about what's going on, particularly for those people who are in cities where we've got scholars. What are you doing to support them? And if you're in some of the buildings where we don't operate, there will still be students out there who that extra bit of support will really make a difference. And I hope that what we've been able to show as the foundation is that extra support for students really does make a difference, really does go the extra mile. I think two really specific things that people can go away and do is firstly to follow our social media work. So our young people are front and centre of those communication channels, and you get such a great insight into what are young people thinking, what's going on in their lives, and just gives you a really good insight into the people who the business is there to support and work with. And then secondly, to listen to our podcast. So hear directly from students and from our scholars about their experiences. And again, it's just a really great opportunity to broaden knowledge and understanding of young people who the foundation works with. And it's just a great listen. One of my New Year's resolutions was to take up running, and I have, and listening to podcasts has been the thing that has got me through windy, rainy training runs. And I love the This Is Us podcast. It's just so refreshing. So would definitely recommend it to anyone, not just those of you that are thinking about going for a run.
And Fiona, just on the social media channels, if people do want to follow the foundation and also listen to those podcasts, where will they find you?
So Twitter and Instagram, you can find us at This Is Us at Uni. And those are the channels that are run by our Unite Foundation scholars. So have a little look at those. And then on Spotify or Apple store, wherever you get your podcasts from, our podcast is just called This Is Us. So if you search that, Anna's Page, who is our presenter, all those podcasts, will always tell you to like and share on the podcast so that we get higher up the rankings. It's always helpful.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to do that right now, Fiona.
Fabulous.
Well, Fiona, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really great to talk, and hopefully this is perhaps a start of more conversations that we can have in the future.
Thank you so much, Ali. It's been really good.